أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Today, inshallah, we're going to speak a little bit about the religions in the Arabian Peninsula. Last week, of course, we spoke about the story of Abdullah and his birth and what came with regards to the nadhr that Abdul Muttalib had taken in order to, saying that if I have 10 children and they grow up to be old, then I will slaughter the eldest of them, or I will slaughter one of them rather, and it turned out to be Abdullah. So we spoke about that, and we spoke about how Abdullah was spared. So today, inshallah, we want to speak about some of the religions in Arabia. And this lesson might be a little bit longer than normal, so I apologize for that, but I just want to try to get all the pertinent details with regards to this out of the way so that next week, inshallah, we can continue on with the rest of the Seerah. So before we get to the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, we want to discuss some of the religions in the Arabian Peninsula. And when we look at this and when we understand this, we'll come to know what necessitated the need for a prophet to come amongst these people, or a messenger to come amongst these people. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were three religions in the Arabian Peninsula. Idolatry, and specifically here we're talking about worshipping the asnam, or worshipping the idols. There was Christianity, and there was Judaism. And we're going to look at each one of these, inshallah, a little bit. And one thing that we want to emphasize here is that although the people of Mecca and the people of Quraysh, although they were, we call them mushrikeen, they did in fact worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala idols. But of course they had the names of Abdullah, the servant of Allah. They had these names, and they would say, they would swear by Allah, and they would mention things by Allah. So they believed in Allah. This was in their past, it was in their religion, but because they associated with the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they became mushrikeen, or polytheists. Now, the people of Mecca, they started on Tawheed because of the da'wah of Ibraaheem عليه السلام and his son Ismaa'eel, and of course they built the Kaaba together, which we'll speak about in the future. So how did these idols get introduced into their worship? Earlier on, if we recall, we spoke about the people of Jurhum, and who Ismaa'eel and his mother Hajar lived amongst, or they came and lived with Ismaa'eel and his mother. We mentioned that they had become corrupt, and they got kicked out by the people of Bani Bakr and Khuza'a, and they took over the city of Mecca. So the people of Khuza'a and the people of Bani Bakr, they kicked out Jurhum and they took over the city of Mecca. The leader of Khuza'a was a man by the name of Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i. Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i. And he was so respected amongst his people that whenever he asked them to do something or commanded them to do something, they would do it without question. They would do it. كان قوله يؤخذ كالشرع. That whatever he said, it is taken as if it is tashri', as if it is legislation that has come down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if he told them to do something, they wouldn't question it and they would do it immediately. Now, one of Amr ibn al-Hay's trips to Ash-Sham, he came to the place called Mab, which is near Al-Balqa in Jordan, in the area of Jordan. And there he met people who are referred to as Al-Amaliq. And Al-Amaliq are supposed to be descendants of Nuh alayhi salam, Amliq ibn Lawid ibn Sam ibn Nuh. So these people, Al-Amaliq, when he came to them, he saw that they were worshipping idols. They had idols there, and he found that they were worshipping them. So he said, مَا هَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ الَّتِي أَرَاكُمْ تَعْبُدُونَ. What are these idols that I see you worshipping? And they replied to him, and they said, هَذِهِ أَصْنَامٌ نَعْبُدُهَا فَنَسْتَمْطِرُهَا فَتُمْطِرُنَا وَنَسْتَنصِرُهَا فَتَنصُرُنَا. They said that these are idols that we have come to worship. We worship these idols. If we ask it for rain, it brings rain for us. And if we ask it for victory, then victory comes to us. So Amr ibn Luhay said to them, أَفَلَا تُعْطُونَنِي مِنْهَا صَنَمًا فَأَسِيرُ بِهِ إِلَىٰ أَرْضِ الْعَرَبِ فَيَعْبُدُوهُ. Won't you give me one of these idols so that I can bring it to the land of the Arab and they could worship it just as you people worship it. So they gave him an idol called Hubal. They gave him an idol called Hubal, and this was the first idol that was brought to Mecca. And when he brought it there, أمر الناس بعبادته وتعظيمه. When he brought it to Mecca, he commanded the people to worship it and to glorify it. And as we mentioned, this was whenever he would command them to do something, and when he would order them to do something, they wouldn't question it, and they began to do it. And this is indeed what happened. And they began to glorify it, and they began to worship it in association with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they didn't leave some of the things that they used to do before. They continued to do some of these things. So they would still make tawaf around the Kaaba, knowing that it is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they would still perform the Hajj, and they would perform the Umrah, and they would stand at Arafah, and they would go to Al-Muzdalifah, and they would still slaughter. So they would still do all these things, but what they did, and they would even do the Tahleel. So they would do the Tahleel as well. But what they did was they introduced an idol into the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now things weren't solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but now they were doing things for Hubal. And Hubal would take things, or they would assume that Hubal would take these things, these ibadat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he narrates regarding this, he says, كان المشركون يقولون لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك. That the mushrikeen, they would say, we are here, O Allah, at your service. We are here, O Allah. لبيك لا شريك لك. That we are here at your service, O Allah. There is no association with you. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, وَيْلَكُمْ قَدْ. He said, woe unto you. Stop. This is sufficient. قد here, and Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi says, means كَفَاكُمْ هَذَا الْكَلَامِ فَاقْتَصِرُوا عَلَيْهِ وَلَا تَزِيدُوا. This is sufficient for you. Stop at this. Don't increase to this. But Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he continues and he says that the mushrikeen would say, إِلَّا شَرِيكًا هُوَ لَكَ تَمْلِكُهُ وَمَا مَلَكَكَ يَقُولُونَ هَذَا وَهُمْ يَطُوفُونَ بِالْبَيْتِ. So they would say these things, and then at the end of the labbaik, they would say that except this one associated with you. So la sharika lak, except this one. There's no association with you except this one. However, you have authority over him, and he doesn't have authority over you. And they would say this as they were making tawaf around the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim, Al-Mu'jam al-Kabir as well. And it is for this reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and most of them do not believe in Allah except that they have associated with Him. So Mecca now Mecca was sort of the central place of ibadah in the Arabian Peninsula. People would come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from far, and we mentioned this before. They would come to perform the Hajj, and they would come to perform Umrah and worship at the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when they come now and they see that there is this idol there that they never recognized before and they never saw before, then the people, since they saw the people of Mecca doing it, they didn't really question it, and they started doing the same thing. So they would associate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the idol Hubal, and it became sort of a business now as well. The people of Mecca, they would carve out these idols, and they would make these idols, and they would give it to the people as well, because the people, obviously, they can't take Hubal back with them. Right? Just like Amr ibn Luhay, when he brought the idol from Ash-Sham, these people want to take idols back to their people as well, so they could worship. Not everyone has the opportunity to come to Mecca every day to worship Allah. So they wanted to take these objects of shirk with them back to their people, so that their people can worship there as well. And there's even a story that is narrated that Umar ibn Khattab, they would make these travel idols as well, these little mini ones that you could put in your pocket, and if you wanted to stop and make ibadah, then you pull it out of your pocket and you worship. And there's a story that is attributed to Umar ibn Khattab, that one day he was sitting, and he was, you hear this a lot from some of the khutbah and some of the speakers, that Umar ibn Khattab was one day sitting and he began to laugh, and then he began to cry. So the people asked him, what makes you laugh? What made you laugh and what made you cry? And Umar ibn Khattab recalls for them a time that he went on a journey and he forgot his little idol to worship. He forgot it at home, and he wanted to make ibadah, but since he didn't have it with him, he took some dates that he had with him, and then he fashioned an idol out of these dates, and then he began to worship, and then he said, this is what made me laugh. Wallahu ta'ala alam, this story apparently it doesn't have any asl to it or any origin to it. It's narrated without an isnad. So Allah Ta'ala Alam. In any case, this became a widespread practice, not just amongst the Quraysh in Mecca, but it became a widespread practice throughout the Arabian Peninsula. So much so that the idols began to increase, and the names of these idols became well known as well. And of course, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala mentions in the Quran a few of them, such as Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, Manat. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala mentions these three, and we'll speak about them a little bit later on in the Seerah, inshallah. And of course, we've just come to know about Hubal, but there's also the idol Isaf and the idol Na'ila. And they were idols that we touched about briefly last week when we spoke about the well of Zamzam, how Abdul Muttalib, when he went to come and dig the well of Zamzam, he dug it between these two idols, Isaf and Na'ila. These were two idols that were there. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrates, she says, ما زلنا نسمع أن إسافا ونائلة كان رجلا وامرأة من جرهم إساف بن بغي ونائلة بنت ديك أحدثا في الكعبة فمسخهم الله تعالى حجرين. She said that we continue to hear, or we still hear about the idols Isaf and Na'ila, who were a man and a woman from Jurham. Isaf ibn Baghi and Na'ila bint Dik. She said we used to hear, we still hear this story that has come to us about them. The two of them had relations with one another inside of the Kaaba, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disfigured them by turning them into stones. This hadith was narrated by Al-Tabarani in Al-Mu'jam Al-Awsat with a chain that has Khalid ibn Yazid al-Umari, who is a liar, but Ibn Ishaq rahmatullahi alayhi also narrates this with an isnad to him that is jayyid, inshallah. It is a good isnad, inshallah. In any case, these are just a few of the idols that we've looked at, and some of the names that we'll come across as well in the Seerah. But there were many more. And Ibn Ishaq rahmatullahi alayhi, in his book Al-Maghazi, he mentions at least 19 different idols that were known in the Arabian Peninsula. And as for Amr ibn Luhay, Abu Hurairah, he narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, رأيت عمرو بن عامر بن لحي الخزاعي يجر قصبه في النار وكان أول من سيب السوائب. He said that I saw Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i, Amr ibn Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i, dragging his intestines in the hellfire. He was the first to start the custom of releasing animals for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll mention that, I'll speak about this in just a moment here, but in another narration from Abu Hurairah, this hadith, by the way, is the one I just mentioned, is in Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Musnad Ahmad and others. And in another narration from Abu Hurairah, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّهُ كَانَ أَوَّلَ مَنْ غَيَّرَ دِينَ إِسْمَاعِيل, that he was the first one that changed the religion of Ismaa'eel. Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i was the first one who changed the religion of Ismaa'eel alayhi salam. And this hadith was narrated by Ibn Ishaq with a Hasan isnad to him. So not only did he change the religion of Ibraaheem and Ismaa'eel, but he would legislate as well. He became a musharra', like he would command the people to do things that had no basis in the religion. And because he would command that they would take it as an act of worship, or as an act of ibadah. And one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, وَكَانَ أَوَّلَ مَنْ سَيَّبَ السَّوَائِبِ, that he was the first one that would release the animals for the sake of the false gods. السَّائِبَةُ النَّاقَةُ الَّتِي كَانَتْ تُسَيَّبْ. A sa'iba, or what the Prophet ﷺ is referring to here, a sa'iba, what is referred to as a sa'iba, is an animal that would be set free. And in Jahiliyyah, if a person would come from a long journey, if he would come from a journey and he made this journey safely, or he recovered from an ailment, like he was sick and then he recovered from the sickness, or his animal saved him, either on the journey, like he saved him from some sort of hardship, or even in battle, if the animal saved him or helped him somehow in the battle, when this person would come back to his city, he would let the animal go free, and he would say, نَاقَتِي سَائِبَةٌ. He would say that this she-camel of mine has been set free. And under normal circumstances, this might sound something that is noble. You know, this animal did something good for you, so you do something good for it. But this wasn't the intention behind it. They did it for the idols. They did it as an act of ibadah for the idols, or to thank the idols. Not really to thank the animal, but to thank the idols. And if a person came and he said, "Naqati sa'iba," that my she-camel has been set free, it would mean that you can't slaughter it anymore. You can't ride it. You can't put your things on the animal in order for it to carry it for you. And you can't drink its milk either. It's set free for the sake of these idols, and they would just allow it to go and roam. And these animals would be marked, so that if someone said that I have freed this animal, it would have a mark on it, so people would know that, this animal has been marked, nobody can touch it. This animal has been dedicated to an idol, nobody can touch it. And if a person would come and then ride on it, they would say, "Atarkabu haraman?" Are you riding something that is haram? They would actually say this is haram. They released it for their own religion that they made up, or their own laws that they made up, and now they say this is haram and this is halal. So Amr ibn Luhay al-Khuza'i was the first one who did this as well. عليهما يستحق من الله. So this is with regards to shirk and how it came to the region. As for Judaism, one of the other religions that we mentioned, well, it first came to the city of Al-Madinah, and shortly after the destruction of the Jewish temple, or shortly after the destruction of the Jewish temple in the year 70 CE, 70 years after what they believe to be the birth of Isa alayhi salam, this temple of theirs, the main temple that the Jews had, was destroyed. And the reason for that is the Jews were under Roman occupation. And they thought it would be a good idea to start a rebellion against the Romans, and the Romans obviously fought back, and as punishment they also destroyed the temple of the Emperor Titus destroyed the main temple of the Jews in Palestine. And many of the Jews fled the city when this happened, and three main tribes from amongst the Jews, there's other tribes as well, but three main tribes from the Jews came to the city of Al-Madinah. And the city of Al-Madinah, it wasn't even a city, it was just a desert oasis at the time, and we'll speak about that more inshallah when we speak about the Hijrah. But they settled there because their scriptures told them that there is going to be an awaited prophet that is going to come to that area. And these three tribes were the tribes of Bani Qurayza, Bani Nadir, and Bani Qaynuqa. And we're going to speak about them, of course, later on in Seerah. But the Jewish faith had even spread to Yemen. And how did it get to Yemen? Ibn Ishaq rahmatullahi alayhi, he narrates that the king of Yemen, a person by the name of Tubban As'ad, Abu Karb ibn Malki, and he is a person who was an idol worshipper. In any case, he left to go on a trip somewhere to the west, and in this trip he had to pass by through the city of Al-Madinah. Now when he went to the city of Al-Madinah, he left his son there. And he continued on in his trip, and when he came back only to learn that his son was killed. And he was killed unknowingly, meaning he wasn't expecting it, someone just happened to come and kill him for no apparent reason. And this infuriated Tubban As'ad, and he raised an army to come and attack the city of Al-Madinah. And the people of Bani al-Najjar, who we said is, of course, will be from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they went out to try to reason with Tubban As'ad. And while they were doing that, a man from Bani Adi, and Bani Adi is a sub-tribe of Bani al-Najjar, happened to kill a man from the army of Tubban As'ad. So here they are trying to negotiate, and this other person, his name, they say his name is Al-Ahmar, he came and he killed another one of the men of belonging to the army of Tubban As'ad. And why? Because he was sitting against a tree that belonged to him. So he wasn't really happy with that, so he went and killed him. And now this infuriated Tubban even more. And they fought against each other. And while they were in, Ibn Ishaq rahmatullah alayhi says that Al-Ansar, they used to claim that even during the battle, they would fight the army of Tubban As'ad during the day, and then they would give them food during the night to show, really the generosity or how good of hosts that they were. Wallahu ta'ala alam. But in any case, as this battle is going on, two rabbis came out from the tribe of Bani Qurayza. And they came out to Tubban As'ad, and they said to him, listen, if you attack the city of Al-Madinah, then you are not going to be spared from a punishment, a severe punishment that Allah is going to send upon you. If you attack the city of Al-Madinah, this punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to come against you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So Tubban As'ad asked why? Like, why do you say this? And they replied to him saying, هي مهاجر نبي يخرج من هذا الحرم من قريش في آخر الزمان تكون داره وقراره. They said that this is going to be the destination of a prophet who is going to come from Mecca, from the people of Quraysh. And this is going to be his home, and this is going to be his headquarters. So Tubban As'ad, he was so amazed by the knowledge of these rabbis and how eloquent their speech was, that not only did he leave the city of Al-Medina, he stopped attacking it, but he accepted the faith of the Yahud, and he took these two rabbis back with him to Yemen. And he said, I'll take you guys back to Yemen, and I want you to teach this religion to the people there. So as they're going back to Yemen, this army of Tubban As'ad happened to come near the city of Mecca. And the tribe of Hudayl had an issue with the people of Mecca, but more so they wanted to also maybe play a sort of a prank against him, or they wanted to get rid of him. They had something against him as well. But we're going to see that Hudayl, back and forth, them and the Quraysh, there were things that were going on back and forth. But in any case, when they saw Tubban As'ad coming with this army, they thought this would be a good idea to use this army in their favor against Mecca. So they said, أيها الملك ألا ندلك على بيت مال داثر أغفرته الملوك قبلك. They said, O king, won't we guide you, or shall we not guide you to a house in which there is so much wealth in it that many of the kings before you were oblivious to it, they didn't know anything about it. فيه اللؤلؤ والزبرجد والياقوت والذهب والفضة. They said, in this house, you are going to find pearls, and you're going to find peridot, and you're going to find rubies, and you're going to find gold, and you're going to find silver. So he said, Bala, of course, why wouldn't I want that? So they said, بيت بمكة يعبده أهله ويصلون عنده. They said, this house is in Mecca, and it is a house that they worship and they pray beside it. So Tubban As'ad decided to attack. And he, just as he was about to, the two rabbis from Al-Medina saw what he was about to do. So, or actually rather, he wanted to consult them to see, to get their advice, because they saw how knowledgeable they were about certain matters. So he wanted to get their advice. So he called for them, and they said to them, "ما أراد القوم إلا هلاكك وهلاك جندك." That these people, they don't want except that you are going to be killed and your army is going to be killed. ما نعلم بيتا لله اتخذه في الأرض لنفسه غيره. We don't know of any house that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken for himself except this house. ولئن فعلت ما دعوك إليه لتهلكن وليهلكن من معك جميعا. And if you do what these people tell you to do or ask you to do, you are going to die, and everyone who is with you is going to die. So they said, or he said to them, فَمَاذَا تَأْمُرَانِنِي أَنْ أَصْنَعَ إِذْ أَنَا قَدِمْتُ عَلَيْهِ. Then what do you tell me to do, or what do you advise me to do if I am to come to this house? And they said, تَصْنَعُ عِنْدَهُ مَا يَصْنَعُ أَهْلُهُ تطوف به وتعظمه وتكرمه وتحلق رأسك عنده وتذل له حتى تخرج من عنده. They said that you do, when you go there, then do what the people of that land do to it. You glorify it, and you make tawaf around it, and you honor it, and you shave your head by it, and you humble yourself in front of it until you leave from its presence. So as he was about to do so, he actually said to them, well, why aren't you guys coming with me? And they replied to him and they said, we would go and do this with you, however the people of this land have introduced shirk into this worship. And they are people who have poisoned or contaminated the religion of Ismaa'eel alayhi salam and Ibraaheem, or the religion, rather they said the religion of our father Ibraaheem. They have contaminated it with these idols, and these are people that are najis and are mushrikeen, and we can't do this. So Tubban As'ad said, well, very well, I will go and do it myself. And as he's about to go, the people of Hudayl, who had sent him in order to destroy it, well, they wanted to come and see what was going to happen. They thought there was going to be a massacre there. So when they come to look, Tubban As'ad sees them, and he goes and captures these people of Hudayl, and he cuts off their hands and he cuts off their legs. And then Tubban As'ad enters the city of Mecca, and he does tawaf around the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he slaughtered there, and he shaved his head there. And he stayed in Mecca for 6 days, feeding the people and giving them honey to drink that he brought from Yemen. And during his stay there, he had a dream that he should clothe the Kaaba. And he did that. He had some cloth that was brought, and then he in fact clothed the Kaaba, and it is said that he is the first one to have done this. And this entire narration is from Ibn Ishaq, and he narrates it in balagh form, meaning there's no isnad with it, but it is said, Allah Ta'ala Alam, that he is the first one that clothed the Kaaba. In any case, when Tubban As'ad returned to Yemen, he brought the Jewish rabbis with him, and they began to spread Judaism throughout the land, and this is how Judaism came to the Arabian Peninsula and also as far southeast as Yemen. So how about Christianity? How did Christianity come? Well, with regards to Christianity, after Isa alayhi salam ascended to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Christianity became divided into many different sects that differed amongst one another, and they were misguided, and they lost the true teachings of Isa alayhi salam. However, there were a few pockets here and there that kept the true teachings of Isa alayhi salam, and we'll see this, of course, a little bit more when we speak about Al-Najashi and Al-Habasha. But there were certain pockets here and there that still followed the true teachings of Isa alayhi salam, and amongst them was a priest by the name of Famian. And he was a person from Ash-Sham who was preaching the teachings of Isa alayhi salam, and he happened to go to Yemen, and he was teaching privately in Yemen. So he wasn't making it an open da'wah, but he was teaching people who would come to him. He would teach people that would come to him, and he would not do it publicly, because Tubban As'ad, if he saw anyone teaching this, or teaching anything other than Judaism, he would have them killed. And Tubban As'ad actually died, and his son ended up ruling after him, and his son his name is Zur'a the Nawas. Zur'a the Nawas continued in the teachings of his father, teaching Judaism, and if anyone taught anything differently than Judaism, he would have them killed. Now we're going to go to a hadith from Suhaib al-Rumi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that is found in Sahih Muslim, Sahih Ibn Hibban, Musnad Ahmad, Al-Mu'jam Al-Kabir, and others. And it is a hadith that he narrates from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this king who is Zur'a the Nawas, he had a sorcerer, and the sorcerer of his was getting fairly old in age. So the sorcerer said to the king, he said, "Inni qad kabirtu fab'ath li ghulaman u'allimuhu as-sihr." He said, I have become someone who is old in age, so I want you to send to me a boy that I can teach him magic, or I can teach him sorcery. So this king sent for a boy, and the boy began to learn with this sorcerer. This is the sorcerer of the king, and he's teaching this boy now magic. But one day, while this boy was on his way to go and meet the sorcerer, he happened to hear the teachings of this person, Famian, who was teaching Christianity. And he one day decided to sit and listen to him, and he became so amazed by what this person was teaching, and this was the true teachings of Isa alayhi salam, not the Christianity that has become widespread today, but the true teachings of Isa alayhi salam, and he came to love it. But because he sat and he was listening to him for so long, when he went to see the sorcerer had him punished for coming late. So the next time he went and he saw the priest said to him, إِذَا خَشِيتَ السَّاحِرَ فَقُلْ حَبَسَنِي أَهْلِي وَإِذَا خَشِيتَ أَهْلَكَ فَقُلْ حَبَسَنِي السَّاحِرُ. He said that if you come, or if you fear the sorcerer, because you come late, then say that my parents kept me behind. And if you come late because now you went late to the sorcerer, and if you now come late to your parents, then tell them that the sorcerer kept me late. Remember, he's spending this extra time with this priest in order to learn with him, and he kept doing this for a while, taking from the priest and taking from the sorcerer at the same time. Now one day on his way, he saw that there was a commotion amongst the people because there was a beast that was blocking the path. So this beast was preventing the people from walking or from passing by. So he said, "Allahumma in kana amru rahibi ahabba ilayka min amr as-sahir faqtul hadhihi ad-dabbata hatta yamdi an-nas." He made a supplication now, and he said, "O Allah, if the affairs of this priest are more beloved to you than what the sorcerer is teaching, then allow this beast to die so that the people can pass by." And after he made this supplication, he took a stone and he threw it against the beast, and the beast died, and the people were allowed to go by. So then he said, when he went and he told the priest what had happened, the priest said to him, أي بني أنت اليوم أفضل مني قد بلغ من أمرك ما أرى وإنك ستبتلى فإن ابتليت فلا تدل علي. He said, oh my son, today you have become someone who is far greater than me from things that I see from you. Like I've witnessed these things from you and I know that you are far greater than I am. And there is going to come a time when you are going to be tested. And if you are tested, then do not refer the people to me. So he began to learn from the priest and kind of ignore what the sorcerer was teaching him. And it got to the point that he was doing so much good that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave another blessing to this boy. And this blessing was that if he would supplicate on behalf of a person to heal this person or cure this person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would cure this person. So the lepers would come to him, and the blind people would come to him, and the deaf people would come to him. And when he supplicates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them to be healed, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would heal these people. Now, there was an aide to the king, the same king who hired or who told the sorcerer to teach this boy. There was an aide to this king who had a sickness with him. He was blind. And he gathered what he could from wealth, and he came to the boy, and he put the wealth in front of him, and he said, if you cure my blindness, I will give you everything here that I have gathered. And the boy said to him, إني لا أشفي أحدا إنما يشفي الله فإن أنت آمنت بالله دعوت الله فشفاك. He said, I don't heal anyone. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that heals. So if you believe in Allah, then I will supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you, and He will heal you. So this person did this, and the boy supplicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this person got his sight back. Now when this person happens to go back to the king, and the king sees that he's seeing again, he wants to know what happened. So he said, مَنْ رَدَّ عَلَيْكَ بَصَرَكَ. Who gave you your sight back? And the person replied, Rabbi, my Lord. And the king said to him, وَلَكَ رَبٌّ غَيْرِي. Do you have a Lord other than me? And the person replied back, he said, Rabbi wa Rabbuka Allah. That my Lord and your Lord is the same. It is Allah. So Zur'a bin Nawas, the aide didn't want to tell Zur'a about who healed him. So Zur'a had this man punished until the aide gave up the boy. So Zur'a summoned the boy. And he brought him forth and he said to him, أي بني قد بلغ من سحرك ما تبرئ الأكمه والأبرص وتفعل وتفعل. He said, oh boy, has your knowledge in sorcery become so great that you are now able to cure the lepers and cure the blind, or give sight to the blind, and do this and do that? And the boy replied to him, he said, إني لا أشفي أحد إنما يشفي الله. I don't cure anyone. Indeed, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that cures. So, and the boy wouldn't give up the priest. Remember, the priest said, if you're tortured or if you're tested, don't tell the people about me. So Zur'a, of course, had the boy punished and tortured until he had no choice but to give up the priest that taught him the religion of Isa alayhi salam, the pure teachings of Isa alayhi salam. So the priest was brought before the king, and Zur'a told the priest to give up the religion, and the priest refused to do so. And Zur'a then told his aides to bring a saw and put the saw over his head and begin to saw him in half until he gives up his religion. And they did that, and he refused to give up his religion until his body was cut in half, even up until his body was cut in half and he died. He would not give up the religion of Isa alayhi salam, the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the priest, or Zur'a rather, called for the aide who was given his sight back, and he told the people to do he told his soldiers to do the same thing to him, have him give up his religion. If he doesn't give up his religion, then saw him in half. And the aide refused to do so, and he too was killed. And this is a hadith, by the way, that we're going to come back to, or this incident we're going to come back to a little bit later on in the Seerah, when we speak about Khabbab ibn al-Aratti, when he comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he asks the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things easy for them. So we'll come back to, this is the incident the Prophet ﷺ refers to when we speak about that, inshallah, in the future. In any case, Zur'a then brought the boy, and he told his soldiers, he said, I want you to take this boy to the top of a mountain and have him give up his religion. If he doesn't give up his religion, then throw him over the mountain. So the boy was taken by these soldiers, and they took him to the top of the mountain. And as he is about to be thrown over because he refuses to give up the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he makes a supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and says, Allahumma ikfinihim bima shi'ta. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, deal with them as you wish or as you desire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He causes the mountain to shake, and all the soldiers fall down and die except the young boy. And the young boy comes back to the king. And the king, when he sees him, he says, "Ma fa'ala ashabuka? What happened to these people who took you?" And the boy replied, and he said, "Kafanihim Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sufficed me against them." So then the king asks for additional soldiers. And he says, "I want you to take him on a boat and take him out to the sea. And have him give up this religion. If he does not give up this religion, then throw him over the boat." So these soldiers come and they take him and they put him on the boat and they go out to sea, and he refuses to give up the religion. So as they're about to throw him over, he said, "Allahumma kfinihim bima shi'ta." He makes the same dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and says, "Oh Allah, deal with them as you wish or as you desire." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes the boat to capsize, and everyone drowns except the young boy, who comes back to shore, and he comes back walking to the king. And the king, when he sees him, he's surprised again. And he says, "Ma fa'ala ashabuka? What happened to your friends or these people that took you out?" And he said, "Kafanihim Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sufficed me against them." And then the boy said to the king doesn't know, he wants to get rid of this boy, but he doesn't know how to get rid of him. So the boy actually says to the king, he said, "Innaka lasta biqatili hatta taf'ala ma amuruka bihi." You are not going to be able to kill me until you do what I command you to do. So the king wants to know. He says, "Wama huwa? What do you want me to do? Like, how do I get rid of you?" And the boy said to the king, he says, "تجمع الناس في صعيد واحد وتصلبني على جذع ثم خذ سهما من كنانتي ثم ضع السهم في كبد القوس ثم قل بسم الله رب الغلام ثم ارمي فإنك إذا فعلت ذلك قتلتني." He said, take me out to an open plain and gather the people and tie me to a tree, and then take this arrow from this quiver of mine and put the arrow in the center of the bow and shoot me with it. But when you shoot, say Bismillah, in the name of Allah, Rabbul Ghulam, the Lord of the boy. And if you do that, you will be able to kill me. So this is exactly what the king does. He takes the boy out to an open field, and he ties him to a tree, and he gathers the people, and then he takes an arrow out from the quiver, and he puts the arrow in the bow, and then he says, "Bismillah Rabbil Ghulam," and he shoots, and the arrow hits the boy in the temple of his head, and he does actually die. Now when he does this, all the people who are gathered in the field, they said, "Amanna bi Rabbil Ghulam, amanna bi Rabbil Ghulam, amanna bi Rabbil Ghulam." We believe in the Lord of the boy, we believe in the Lord of the boy, we believe in the Lord of the boy. Why? Because the king said he believes, or he said, "I'm doing this in the name of the Lord of the boy." So the people followed the king, and they started doing that. Now his servant said to him, "أرأيت ما كنت تحذر قد والله نزل بك حذرك قد آمن الناس." They said that, "Don't you see what has happened? That very thing that you were afraid of has now happened." And the people are saying, "We believe in the Lord of the boy." So the king then orders that he becomes absolutely furious, and he orders that ditches be dug along major paths, and fires be lit in these ditches, and anyone who refuses to give up the religion of the boy, the religion of Isa alayhi salam, the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they are to be thrown into this ditch. And the people were not giving up their religion, and they were being thrown in one by one. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam speaks about a woman who was carrying a young child, an infant, with her. And as she was coming towards the fire, she didn't want to give up, but then she hesitated, like she didn't want to give up the religion, but as she's coming near to the ditch and the fire, she hesitated a little bit. And the young infant boy said to him, he said, Ya Umma, isbiri فإنك على الحق. He said, oh my mother, be patient because indeed you are upon the truth. And she jumped into the fire, and as I mentioned, this is a sahih hadith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, revealed concerning this, قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals in Surah Al-Buruj, cursed were the people of the ditch of fuel fed by fire, when they sat by it and they witnessed what they were doing against the believers, and they had no fault except that they believed in Allah, the Almighty, the worthy of all praise. So inshallah, this gives us a bit of an introduction to the religions, and of course now we can see how all these religions come to spread and how the religions that existed, we see the need, of course, for a prophet to come to these people and guide them back to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the true religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So next week inshallah we will continue on with the story of Abdullah and his marriage to Amina, and we'll deal with that portion inshallah next week. أقول ما سمعتم من صواب فمن الله وإن أخطأت فمن نفسي ومن الشيطان جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And again, I apologize for the length. It won't be as long. Usually it will be a little bit shorter inshallah.